So I want to give you an update of what's going on in the markets today, and we'll start with this. Ford headline: Ford pulls outlook, sees 1.5 billion hit from Trump tariff, and essentially that's been the overriding headlines in the markets. You guys know the trade war, the tariffs, and more and more companies are pulling their outlook, meaning that with the uncertainty in the future, they can't predict what's going to happen. Now, this is quoting from Ford here. It says, Ford Motor Company suspended its full-year guidance and said President Donald Trump's auto tariffs will take a toll on profit, joining rivals stunned by volatile global trade policies. So it's not just Ford who's feeling the sting. It's several companies in the auto industry. Ford said this is an industry-wide supply chain disruption. Also, Mattel, the toy company, they're doing the same thing. They're just uncertain what's going to happen in the future. This was the headline today. Mattel pulls 2025 sales forecast, citing tariffs impact on toys. And if you're curious, yes, Mattel does make toys in China. It's not all of them. The number they gave here, it says Mattel manufactures less than 40% of its products in China, but that's still pretty significant, right? And another thing that Mattel's been doing, if you guys have been following along, they've been starting turning their IPs into movies. So you guys know there was a Barbie movie recently, and then they're going to do another one. I think maybe Hot Wheels or something like that. No, I got it right here. It says Barbie, no, Masters of the Universe. So that would be He-Man. So maybe not Hot Wheels. I was wrong on that. He-Man. I guess that comes out in 2026. I don't know who's the star of He-Man or / Masters of the Universe. If you guys know, let me know. But this is something that all the companies have to deal with, and essentially they're all reporting the same kind of stuff. They're negatively affected by Trump. Here's what it says. Trump has waved off concerns about the impact of his tariffs, saying China made trillions of dollars, right? And Trump will always go on and on about trade deficits this, trade deficits that. But his numbers are always misleading. One is because the USA, is a wealthy nation and buys a bunch of products from other places. Is that a bad thing? That's a serious question, because the way Trump paints it, he makes it sound like it's a bad thing. But I mean, that's just how it is. And when you talk about trade deficits with various countries, China being one, but there's lots of countries out there in the world. I'll use the example of, say, like Vietnam. Their consumers are not going to spend as much or consume as much as the USA. It's just how it is. So, don't let him mislead you on that kind of stuff. And then he also doesn't talk about services enough to where, I'll give you examples, say US has a pretty strong hold on financial markets, say with like Visa and MasterCard, which take a ton of fees. If you guys, work in retail, have stores, these kind of things, you'll know this. They take a ton of fees anytime you do a transaction. So that's the kind of stuff where, Trump focuses on goods and, focuses on like dolls, where he's talking about, you don't need $30, you only need 2 or 3. And if you're a company like Mattel, you're like, what are you talking about? Like, we want to be able to, import as many dolls as the consumer will want to buy. And if America's doing well and prospering, maybe people want to buy more dolls. So there's that. On top of that, you have Clorox doing the same thing. So first Ford, then Mattel, and now Clorox, all today announcing, I'll read the headline, Clorox lowers sales outlook as consumers cut back on shopping. This is not a good sign, and this is a defensive company. Clorox says, quote, in the third quarter, heightened macroeconomic uncertainties drove changes in shopping behaviors, resulting in temporary category slowdowns and lower sales. We expect these slowdowns to persist in the fourth quarter. So it looks like all year, again, slowdowns. And I mentioned this stuff, like all these together, because I always try to talk with you guys about a lot of the things that people portray, say on other channels or the news. It's all about left, right. Not necessarily, right? For these kind of companies, it's about making money. It's about telling you, hey, what's going on with our sales? What's going on with our revenue? How are people feeling? What are we planning for the future? And they're all saying the same thing. We don't want to give you any guidance or forecasts going into this next year, because it's completely uncertain. And then that affects things like the housing market, right? Because a house is one of the, if not the biggest purchases in your lifetime, right? And if you're not feeling good about the economy, you're not feeling good about your job, do you think you're going to go out and be buying a house? Especially at today's prices, I'm sure you guys know housing affordability is down to lows. It's just things are too expensive, and sort of basically the prices are out of whack compared to how much money that we make. And it's not just USA, it's all around the world. Housing is a huge issue. I've told you guys about this stuff on the channel. Canada had a really interesting proposal that's from Carney. He's pushing, hey, what if we do a bunch of prefab housings and find ways to reduce the cost of making homes. Also, then we can make more affordable homes, and may be better for the environment, maybe better for energy conservation and these kind of things. And I just try to bring you different perspectives on this stuff. This is the headlines for the housing market. It says, the faltering economy is starting to become a drag on the housing market. And this actually reflects the economy as a whole, right? And for those of you who are in real estate, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It does depend on which market you're in, so some markets are going to be different than others. So for example, this says here, real estate agents, developers, home buyers, and economists are all trying to make sense of which way trends are heading. Slower growth, which is something that the other three companies I told you guys before are all kind of saying the same thing. The economy shrank at the beginning of 2025. Means interest rates will probably stay high for the foreseeable future. Stock market swings and flagging consumer confidence are pushing buyers out of the market. And then, from Trump's point of view, he says we're all going to get rich from the tariffs and everything's doing great, and that the Fed should cut rates. And that's actually really I think they're meeting this week. I think they're going to hold. Now, theoretically, they could raise, but it's probably off the table. The chances are they're going to hold. Because the problem is that the tariffs are as you guys are seeing, are raising the cost of everything, right? And then you have all these companies basically pulling back on their forecasts and their spending, so they're not going to be hiring. Consumers are nervous, which they should be. And you're thinking that, okay, what's the end game here, right? I keep been thinking about this a lot the last couple of days, with the Trump stuff. And in my opinion, as we kind of just see from his words and his actions, he wants to create a world where only him and his billionaire buddies like your Elon Musk get wealthy. And then as everyone else, frankly, gets poor, they want you to develop these cult sort of religious, followings into the Trumpies and the Musks, so that you forget about that you can only, buy one or two dolls. You can't buy that many. The price of dolls are going to go up. But guys, we're winning because Trump and Musk are absolutely fantastic. And that's sort of what it feels like to me, because I'm literally reading through all the companies going, man, things don't look good. Housing market's even like, yeah, it doesn't look so great. On top of that, they were saying here, this is kind of an interesting one, talking about the cost of homes due to tariffs. Let me read a little bit of this for you guys. It says, Trump's global trade war is also stifling builder sentiment after it rallied post-election. So this is survey data from the National Association of Home Builders. That's also the Wells Fargo Housing Market Index. 60% of builders said their suppliers have already increased or announced increase on material prices, right? So stuff's going to go up in cost to build a house because of the tariffs. All told, builders are estimating a typical cost bump of almost $11,000 per home. Now, what's interesting here, I was reading through this stuff, it didn't mention the essentially, remember, Trump wants to deport a lot of basically workers who build houses, roof your houses, these kind of things, right? The illegal immigrants, you want to say that. If you want to say undocumented workers, you can say that, whatever phrase. But basically, the workers who build houses. So if theoretically we hire a bunch of Americans who theoretically now want to build houses, because I don't know, I can't speak to Americans who Trump says want to work in factories, and now do those Americans also want to do the jobs in the fields that the immigrants are doing, or do the jobs of roofing houses, etc. I don't know. I can't speak for all Americans, but I'll just say that'll most likely raise the cost in terms of labor to build a house. And then you got material costs, which they're saying is an average about $11,000 a year. I mean, this is just numbers and math. And I think in my opinion, as we go forward into this next year, I mean, it's hard to not foresee a slowdown and a recession. That just seems like that's where we're heading. Because the whole plan of Trump and Musk, again, is send you back to the factory, celebrate that Trump and Musk are getting rich. And then they're supposedly, because people keep asking me, where's the tariff money going to go? Supposedly they're going to, use all this tariff money and invest in, Musk plans to go to Mars or build these new, AI things and robots. And I guess we're all going to get rich off of that. That's what they tell you, which it doesn't make any sense at all. The other part, which is a really important story, which is probably not getting a lot of coverage in the USA because it's kind of sad to talk about for Americans, but it's just the truth. The dollar has been really losing a lot the last week. I think that shows a essentially a lack of confidence in the U.S. Economy and in the markets. And so you start to, I mean, you literally see it in the markets. The dollar's been down. And the craziest thing, if you don't know, we've been on holiday here in Asia. So that would be China, Japan, and Korea. And I think the markets are closed for a couple of days. They'll probably open up again tomorrow, is my understanding of it. And we'll see how that responds. But I can already see it moving in the currency markets. And then you have the Fed making a decision. So, you know, in terms of investing, you guys got to do what makes sense for you. My advice in this stuff is always the same. You want to diversify. Don't throw all your eggs in one basket. So it doesn't mean like you completely pull all your money out of, you know, one thing and put it all into another. You just stay diversified and you do what makes sense for you. If you want to play the market safe, you do an index fund. If you just want to get a steady returns, right? You're like, okay, I'm going to go with dividend stocks, or I'm going to go with CDs, or I'm going to go with really good, you know, savings accounts. You can also buy government bonds. It just depends on your situation. Always good advice though is, you know, pay off your debts. It's never a crazy thing to say, and you know, make sure that you have money set aside for a rainy day. If you want to be more aggressive, what a lot of people seem to be doing, like you can see it in the markets, is pushing, you know, investing towards Asia. If you want to buy ETFs in a particular country, you can do that. But again, this is all up to you. I just try to keep you guys informed of what's going on. Ultimately, though, you know, things will turn around. I can't tell you exactly when. And essentially, when everyone's running away, you know, that's the time to be buying. That's usually what they say. But how long will that take, and how long will this, you know, period go? This is why it's so uncertain, and the companies aren't giving any great forecasts. But there's still going to be a lot of profitable companies out there. It's not like business stops entirely. It's just that things slow down, and that's essentially what's going on. So I do appreciate your time. I'd like to hear your thoughts on any one of these things, and I'll catch you on the next video.